Hey, welcome to the LGBTQ Voice here at the New Bedford Guide. I'm your host, Dan, and we saw each other last week, and we talked about a little bit of community members last time. This week, we actually have some younger folks and some of our LGBTQ elders here with us today. We're going to be talking with each other. Whoa. Voice here at the New Bedford Guide. I'm your host, Dan. Yeah, hold on. How do I turn off the audio again? Last week not talked about so I'm not going to be able to actually see the questions you guys do live. So sorry for that little snafu. My fault. All right. So we're here with some of my friends, or well, acquaintances, but I hope by the end of today, some really good friends. So I want to introduce you. So if you may start.
So hello, my name is Alex. I am female to male transgender. I use male pronouns, which are he, him, his, and I am pansexual.
You can go there.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I identify as gender nonconforming, non-binary, trans-feminine, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and they, them, theirs, and I also identify as pansexual.
So sorry to interrupt. Just a quick note for people who may not be familiar with that kind of language. Can you tell us, Zoe, what is a pansexual and what is non-binary, etc.?
So a pansexual person is someone that likes people of all genders, just does not discriminate of a person's gender. And also non-binary means that I do not identify as gender binary, and gender nonconforming means that I don't identify as a specific gender, and trans-feminine means that I basically mostly present myself as female though.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Zoe. And
hi, I'm Tom. I'm a mature gay male.
Thank you.
I'm Connie. I'm also a elder in the gay community.
And I'm Joe, and I'm a wizened elder in the gay community.
Yes. The reason I choose elders, from my background with indigenous populations, like elder is a term of respect, but I do know that colloquially, sometimes it's like, I'm not an old fop, like, so if there is a term that you would prefer, just let me know. Is there? Oh, okay. All right, cool. So at the top of the show, we wanted to let you guys know that if you would like to support our content in the future, please contact Leo at newbedfordguide.com, right? .com, yes. So it is a community. So Leo at newbedfordguide.com. We really would like your support, and so that way you can have this kind of content in the future. So tonight's episode, we mentioned last week that we were going to have this kind of a little bit of community table discussion, and we're going to have some questions that were in a hat, and we meant literally in a hat, and they don't know anything. They only know maybe one of the questions, but everything else is kind of spontaneous, and we wanted to interact with you guys as well. So if you do have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Our behind-the-scenes personnel will let me know, because again, technical difficulties, which again, sorry, thank you for that. All right, so to ensure no cheating, I'm not gonna. I know what the questions are, but I don't know the order, and it's very random. So, all right. So the one is actually really good. So, what do you think that New Bedford can do for our community in terms of the LGBTQ community? Does anyone particularly want to start? I will call names like a teacher. I have no problems doing that. I've taught before, so.
Well, I'll say something.
Okay.
Although I'm not from New Bedford, but I have lived in many, many, many places. And I find New Bedford to be actually the most closed off of every place I've ever lived. And I'm not really sure why that is. So I think if there was, I don't know how to go about doing it, but there have to be a lot more people in the city than present themselves.
Yes.
To each other even. I don't really understand that, but I think it would have to make the community feel safer to be able to identify. I mean, we have a lot of trouble getting people to come to the supper club. I mean, out of 10,000 people, we get like 20 tops.
And there's 95, I just did like a recent check of like what's the population in New Bedford, and according to 2016, we have over 95,000 people.
Right.
And if we want to say the 1 in 10 is the generic, like how many, LGBTQ
Right,
people
that
there
makes
are.
9,500 folk
Yes,
somewhere.
Somewhere.
So, yeah.
And to add to that, I'm also not originally from New Bedford.
Oh.
I've lived in other places. And when I came here, I looked for the community, right? And there was no central place to look for them. Like, I lived in Boston, Los Angeles, Oklahoma City, and there was always the gay district. So when I came to New Bedford, I thought there was a gay district. But I found one bar, and to me, that's where you go, because that's where we went. But there was no central place where you could go, and because when I was doing a thing downtown in April, I had a little protest of my own, and I met a lot of people that were gay and lesbian, but I wouldn't know where I would have met them other than there, because they're not the people I would go to. I wouldn't go where they would hang out, but there was no central place where everybody would hang out. So I found that a little difficult.
And Zoe or Alex, what do you kind of...
You want to go first, or?
So I lived in New Bedford all my life. When I first started coming out, I started like noticing like there's different groups for like LGBT people to attend every week, and different outreaches where my school actually used to have an alliance where like people who like were comfortable with going would go to the alliance, and people like say if they were like, closeted, they would like say they're an ally and then later on come out. I have found that New Bedford has done a pretty well job with like showing different programs for young people. I think they could do a better job with outreaching more with like, I know Pride just started last year and we're having a Pride this upcoming summer, but like I feel like a lot more people would come if like people outreach more.
I agree.
And do you think, and I think this is fairly true because I'm also born and raised in New Bedford, most of our youth tend to just leave. We tend to abandon ship and just go elsewhere because we're looking for like that kind of, again, that gay district like you're talking about. Like I left and went to Western Mass and had a horrible time with yuppies. So I came back. And I think that's kind of another thing too. Like I think there should be a reason we want to stay, and I think we just need to kind of foster that as well. Tom or Zoe, do you have any comments about it? Or
I was gonna say, we've actually talked a lot about this a little bit, not a little bit, but a lot about it. Looking into getting a shelter for LGBTQ youth, because we've had a number of LGBTQ youth who were homeless, so that would be a good idea. And also, like Alex said, more outreach. But that is going to be happening as we've said before. Yes, we've said before.
And I just wanted to point out, so thank you for doing me. I found out how to quiet my phone. So I'm looking at your comments live, so thank you. Dennis DeMello just wanted to say that that he kind of agrees that, New Bedford is not really doing enough, and specifically that there needs to be more youth and young adults and older LGBTQ people. So like an actual substantial, if you think of a family is multi-generational. There's a grandparent, there's a parent, and then there's a kid. I think that kind of needs to be represented, I think, in the community. And so yes, thank you, Dennis. Tom, do you have...
I'm from New Jersey originally.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm a transplant here for the past 6 years. New Jersey was an extremely homophobic area, so when we came here, I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
But as the longer I've been here, I realize there are no outlets for us older gay folks. And it's frustrating.
It is.
You can just go to the grocery shop and just, it's, and once a month we have an LGBTQ separate club where, as Connie said, 10 out of 9,500 people show up, and sometimes it's not even 10. And it gets to be kind of boring.
Do you think, because like one thing too, I went to Philly recently, and one thing that was amazing is that they just opened up their queer youth and young adult housing that's lower income, and also they have a older gay senior housing. And like I got to see it, and it's like amazing. And we do have a lot of elder housing, thankfully, in New Bedford and Section 8 stuff and whatnot. But it'd be kind of nice, like, because I think there was a great article somewhere, I should try and find it and link to it on the Facebook, but it talked about the plight of being older and queer and like surviving, and that, you know, you kind of get erased in a way being amongst like in terms of like older, of like going into care homes and having CNAs and whatnot, and that those kind of resources, and being like invisible almost as a
we have to go back in the closet when
there's
we
a
go
film.
to these places,
Exactly.
because we are badly mistreated, abused, and most often the minute you say you're gay, you're shunned as you get, as I'm saying, older. So
Now, there is a film that addresses that issue, which was shown to all the social workers, all the nursing home people, at one point last year. We only saw it that one time, and a lot of people still don't know about it. But that was the issue, is that people were feeling like they had to go back in the closet when they went into a facility. Now, I think, I'm not sure, but I think in order to have like an all-gay nursing facility, I think it has to be private.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you can't, otherwise it would be discriminatory. So, but San Francisco has one, Boston has one. They are starting to be built specifically just for gay seniors, because we're different.
Yeah.
And
We just are. Can't really describe why.
can I just throw in also that we're not all ready for the
No.
old folks home?
Oh, I'm not trying to shove you in, Joe. I'm not.
So what I mean by that is, it's okay, the old people go to the old folks home.
Yes.
The young people do the young people thing.
Yeah.
But there has to be where the older people interact with the younger people in a natural way, because be honest, when AIDS hit, a whole generation sort of got wiped out.
Yes.
Okay? So, and we still have the problem from that. We ended up at a certain point with the older people and the younger people, and no bridge generation. So the younger people, they're not gonna talk to old people. So they lost a lot of history because they didn't have the next generation to talk to, because we weren't there. But like when I go to a bar or something, and there's only one around here, I like it when it's mixed. I don't like going in at the end of the day at work or something, and it's all people my age. It's like, what are we gonna talk about? You know, when cigars were 5 cents. And you like the young people in there, because you can talk about, you can tell them stuff, they can tell you stuff. And then on the weekends when you go, of course the younger people don't go out till after 11, right? Which we didn't when we were kids. We got
really?
Rarely after 11. But by then the older people are, you know, we've had it, it's time to go home because Saturday Night Live's on or something, and you know, you gotta be up for Jenny's special. And we don't get to see the young people. So you either don't see them, or if you hang out long enough at the bar on a Saturday night, you get to see them. But they're not interested in talking to old people because we're old people.
Well, but
when you were their age, did you want to talk to an old person?
No, but there was
I rest my case.
Yeah, but there was a whole bunch of people in between you could talk to and eventually end up to an old person. Nowadays, it's either young or old, and you don't have the glide towards the older people.
Right, but I think if there start being more events, like the movie event, like the last Sunday movie of the month, where if you get it out to more people, then you will start to mix people together on a social. That's the best way to get them going.
So Connie's referencing, we mentioned last week, I was going to do it as an ad spot, quote unquote. But so at the last Sunday of every month until April, April will be the last month, we are hosting a LGBTQ winter film series with a lot of partners. We have a variety of partners, to list them off. I think there's 16 of them, maybe. but it's going to be hosted at the New Bedford Whaling National Historical Park on 33 William in historic downtown. It's in the theater area there. It's going to be the last Sunday this January. It's going to be the 28th, thank you. The 28th from 2 to 5. So definitely come down. You'll see me. You'll probably see Connie, because Connie likes movies. I like movies. And it's free. So, like, just come down and just chat and learn something. We're going to be watching I Am Not Your Negro about James Baldwin. So we're excited for that. And so thank you, Connie.
Are there snacks?
Yes.
So it's a federal facility.
Potato chips we had last time.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a drawing.
maybe. But that was brought in from the South Coast LGBTQ Network.
We had chips.
So those snacks were provided by the South Coast LGBTQ Network. You can find them on Facebook, by the way. But they were provided from them. So I think maybe if one of our partners might bring something,
Popcorn.
that's.
We like popcorn if you don't mind.
Mushy stuff.
But as a federal government, they can't.
Mushy stuff, you know,
They can't provide it. Yeah, they can't supply snacks. But one of our partners may provide snacks. But I don't want to advertise that in case that's not true. So
No, I think-
if you smuggle in something, I don't think we're going to be like the AMC theaters. So go ahead.
Taste the rainbow.
Literally. So I think we can go on to the next subject. Unless, do you guys have anything else last
No,
time?
I'm
So let's.
beaten.
Okay, let's get some nice ASMR going on in here. Hold on. And there was a brief question. Amanda, I just wanted to let you know that I do see you. About the gender stuff. I think maybe towards the end, or maybe in a brief conversation, will happen naturally. But there will be an episode, most definitely, about those kind of things. So do stay in tuned in. But I do want to address that. We do see your question. I'll try and save that for the end of the show, if that's okay with you. Thank you. All right, so the next question. So, the youth, what would you like to tell one of the elders, and or not here, but like in general, like what would you like to impress upon them, and likewise, you folks, like what would you want to impress onto the younger generation?
Dangerous question to ask older people.
Is it to get off your lawn?
I don't have a long kick them off the knee.
Off the stoop. I'll go first, only because like. One, I think I can open up the conversation a little bit, but I would like to thank you. I think I'm one of those in-between people as a perpetual millennial, but I had people who were from the AIDS crisis. I remember growing up with them and they dying and dealing with that tail end, but I also remember what it was like not having to deal with it. Like now we have PrEP, we have Truvada, and stuff like that. So like I've seen both aspects. And so I want to thank you all for the work, even though existing itself is just work. So thank you. And thank you, those who are watching. So, but do y'all want to say anything?
Just thank you to you for paving the way. And yeah.
You can be honest.
Yeah.
If you want to tell them to stop being curmudgeonly about something.
We are curmudgeon.
I might
Speak
have
for
something
yourself.
more to say.
I just
You
did.
curmudgeon.
Do you have anything
Like
else?
that.
No. I think so. I'm going to stir the pot a little bit, just a tiny bit, not a lot, because I like you all. I think also being like willing to pass the baton a little bit, like, you know, just I would like to impress upon people that like, especially one of me, like I acknowledge what you've done and everything, but I would like for you to like know that yes, everything is changing now. It's so weird and different now than what you guys were doing. But being willing to pass the baton over, that like we can help and uphold the community a bit. But I also don't want to do it in a way that also erases you guys. So I guess that's the only thing like I would like to impress or like express.
Honey, you
upon
can have
them.
the baton. I don't.
Well,
Thank you.
but I want to stir
Tired of
the
leading
pot.
the band.
If you
In that
stirred,
regard, just to maybe explain why sometimes we old people don't, well, we want to pass on the baton. We really do. But we want to pass it on, how to say it? We want to make sure that people are ready to take it. you know? And like my complaint, it might be just mine, but I've seen it in other places. We're always asking, where are the young people? Right? Like, we fought all these battles, etc. And then you look and you say, well, where's the next group coming up to make sure they don't lose what we got? But they keep that, and they fight for the stuff we didn't get around to getting yet. And I think among old people I talk to, older people I talk to, there's a fear that there's no one there to hand the baton to. And that could be because we're separate and not united to get older and younger together.
Yeah.
That's at least that's my fear.
Well, and I feel, I'm sorry.
No, go
Did you
ahead,
wanna
dear.
say
Go ahead.
something?
No, I defer to you. I always defer to age.
Well, that's
I
true.
thought it was to beauty.
But,
That's true.
you know, I think that one of the issues that maybe, well, I can't say because there's not that many activist seniors. I happen to be one of them, but there aren't that many. And so what I worry about is we don't really care about claiming that you have freedom because we marched for it, but it's not over. I mean, two weeks ago, transgender was on the banned word list.
Yes.
Now, why aren't you guys fighting? You got to fight. And that's why we're a little afraid to give the baton, because nobody's taking it.
And Tom, what
I think we don't realize that we've experienced the problems that you are going through now, but as in time, we've forgotten. What you're going through is very vital for you folks. I think as we've matured, we need to remember it's no fun being young. It's difficult. You've got all these hurdles to climb. We're sliding down the mountain. You're still putting your hiking boots on to get up there. And so I think that's what a lot of us older folks need to realize. It's not, young folks have a lot to face, and we have to stop talking about what we did and help them do what they can do.
So Tom has become the pot stirrer. The tables have turned. So, but thank you, Tom. Yeah.
I want to add something.
Oh, okay.
It's not easy to do stuff like, yes, we've heard about that, and like the transgender being on the ban list, and also the transgender woman being killed in New Bedford. That was a big...
Not in Bedford.
Massachusetts.
In North Adams. So...
it was in Massachusetts.
Yes.
Not close, but in Massachusetts. And it's hard to do activism, but it's not something that you can do right away. And it takes time to do the stuff that you would like to do. Like if we want to get that word off, that takes time. If we want to talk about deaths and stuff like that, to prevent stuff like that takes time as well.
And we must remember, I'm talking for myself now, but when I was your age, I was busy trying to protect myself. I wasn't out marching and demonstrating and holding a banner saying, look at me, I'm queer. So I can understand you young guys and gals need to be protected by us old-timers in many areas. Not denigrated, not put down because of your youth, but understood. And try to recall when you were 19, if you can, or 18 or 20.
I have a diary.
You have a diary.
But you didn't write. But seriously, that's enough. I'm going to stop.
Joe's diary. Dear diary.
No, what I was going to say too, and this is a good illustration because, like you were saying, when you were 19, you were doing those things. I was one of those people with the signs.
Well, God bless you.
Yeah.
But most of us weren't.
Right, but what I'm saying is those people that carried the signs, right, we're looking for the young sign. We know not all young kids are going to be out on the street protesting every time something happens, but you want to know that there's going to be somebody that's out there protesting, like with the murder of the transgender person or the transgender word being on the forbidden list. there's the internet. Okay.
And that's a new tool, so like we don't have to always be on the street corner, but that is a tool.
But as
it
far
is
as like showing
different.
up, because
Yeah.
people want to see things,
Yes.
right? You can't have a protest unless there's people that can be seen. And in our day, it was you had to call around, you have to write a letter, you'd have to. It took forever,
Yeah.
but you'd organize. And I'm just talking as a curmudgeon old activist. I'm just amazed that like when something like that happens, people aren't all over the internet and saying, okay, meet at a certain place at a certain time, we're gonna do this, okay? And then if nobody shows up, that's kind of embarrassing, okay? But nobody knows you're gonna be there anyway. But if all of a sudden, like in front of, I don't know, the Federal Building downtown, even if there's 10 people, that's 10 people that weren't there 5 minutes before. And people see that and say, I wonder what that's about. And then the conversation starts. So for me as an old guy, that's one of the things that baton thing. It's like, why aren't they showing up? Because in the old days we did. Okay,
Can we move on, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
but you don't have to be an activist. You know.
So just a quick point of note, this content's really great. Actually, the conversations have been really great. If you'd like to support us, please contact leo@newbedfordguide.com, and we can get you some ad space. If you would really like to help us out, I think there's different levels possibly or whatever. So get in touch with Leo, find out how you can help support us and, keep these kind of conversations going. So we're gonna move to the next question. Just want to, Alex, do you have anything you want to say? Okay, I can move on. More ASMR. Okay, this is a quick one.
Pick a good one.
Oh, don't worry.
Not that one.
That was judgmental.
Oh, so this
Thank
is kind of another can of worms. So, do you struggle with understanding trans issues and needs? So I think we talked about last week, viewers, that LGBT. The T is kind of the tail end, fairly newish. I want to say when the 90s is when we started saying LGBT. Late 90s, if I remember correctly, on the internet. So it's fairly new-ish, or it feels new, I want to say. It feels new because trans people have been around forever. But does anyone here kind of struggle with trans issues or understanding at least? No.
I think Alex and I have a pretty good idea of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because and also, full disclosure, I'm transgender as well. I'm a proud gay male, trans man. I think the umbrella kind of does encompass most gender variants, is what most of that is called. And so we have kind of a good representation, well, not the best representation, but that there are gender fluidity, and these are new terms, and you guys also kind of had visible reactions to them and whatnot. And I think the younger generation is definitely pushing the boundaries of what that understanding is, both sexuality and gender, and I think they are different and can inform each other. But I guess another aspect of it is, so if you guys do feel comfortable with those kind of things and needs, when was it kind of the first time you actually kind of interacted with or kind of had to deal with those kind of transgender issues, if you will?
I'm a former teacher, and I've taught many children who were transgender. Not many. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, I don't know. But, so I'm comfortable with that term. It's, when you said binary, I mean, those are the terms
They're
that
newer,
are
yeah.
transgender.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. But it's the other that they're not part of my daily vocabulary. So, of course, I don't, Judge Judy doesn't use them. So, so I'm being educated, which I'm willing. I want to be educated. I want to know all those cool terms.
Fancy terms.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people struggle with actually understanding what transgender, the dictionary definition means. I feel like a lot of people, they think sexual orientation and gender identity are the same thing, and when they're totally different. I feel like more terms as a generation comes on are being discovered. Back then, just being gay was hated against, but now, new terms that are being added to LGBT are coming on. We have a whole alphabet almost every letter of the alphabet is being used right now by the younger generation.
It is a Campbell's alphabet soup in this community.
And I feel like a lot of people don't understand what trans people go through because they obviously aren't trans, or if they are trans and they don't really understand themselves, and they question I don't know what is happening.
I don't think I think gay folks can understand. I think it's the breeders that don't understand. They don't understand gay. How are they going to understand trans? I mean, give me a break. You know what I mean? So you got to sympathize right here.
I think oh wait, Joe, did you want to say something?
No, I was kind of not. Yeah,
No.
I was thinking. No, I was just going to say when you say.
I thought you didn't have anything to say.
You'd be surprised. Anyway, what I found is a lot of older gay people have a hard time with transgender, right? And to a surprising degree. Okay, and I've been where I know some very important transgender people that were, trailblazers, I guess. And some of them are very important. So I had no choice but to learn everything I could because they made me. But I do know some people now that they're my age, and when you bring up transgender, it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. It's like one more thing, and they'll probably be dead before the next letter is added on to the alphabet. Okay, so they just don't want to bother it, and it's kind of disturbing sometimes, the lack of knowledge. Because he feels like he wants to be a woman today, right? Or just decided no longer to be a man, so he wants to be a girl. Okay, and it's like, no, that's not it. But it's surprising how many, even in the gay community.
And even if it was, if we lived in a society where one day, oh, could I just be a girl today? Sure. And how much is that going to hurt me on an individual basis that one person changes their mind from one day to the next? And I think in terms of I'm kind of going a little bit back, but some people may not remember ENDA, which is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. The biggest thing was that transgender people got dropped from that list, because initially when it was put forward in legislation, transgender people were listed on there to be protected federally from discrimination, and many of the gay lobbyists had to kind of sit there and be like, well, straight people don't want to have transgender people on here because they think that's weird, and they're already kind of accepting gay, so we want to push that momentum, and transgender people got dropped from that in the last minute, and then the bill passed. So I think there is a little bit, and I'm definitely understating this, I think resentment in a way sometimes between our own community of well, yes, we're not that pretty, and so it's a lot harder for we're not all going to get married and have a wet picket fence what the American dream is and whatnot. And I think that to also talk back even further about our conversation of there's no really gay identity here, no gay district. It's because it's kind of almost we have to assimilate. We have to kind of be as straight as possible, or we're just like you. And so therefore, we don't have that it's okay to be gay and be a little bit weird and and that's okay. Yeah. And so, yeah. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
I think for myself, I think, in the days of, in New York, there were a lot of, they weren't transgender in those days. It was whatever they were, transsexual.
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
called
sure
themselves,
which one it was.
Marcia called herself transvestite. And
right, there was transvestite, and then there was transsexual, which
Yeah.
I think was somebody that actually had the surgery.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But now what I find is that transgender is much more individual. It's not, you can't identify them as a group, because each person is very unique in how they feel, in which way they want to go, how they're going to end up. I mean, so that's the difference for me, that you can't just say, we could say, these are gay men, these are gay women. I just think you're more individual than a category. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, like just because someone identifies as trans doesn't mean they have to go through hormone therapy or get the surgeries.
Right.
They could just say, hey, I'm trans, I identify as male, and that's it. I don't want to go through hormones, I don't want to go through surgeries, and that's just how I feel.
Right, see, so that's what I mean by individual, whereas before, if you were transsexual or transvestite, you were definitely identified as, in that case, mostly men to women. You know, there were some women to men, but not very many.
Yeah, they're mostly
in those days
considered butches back then.
Yeah.
So, just a quick note. Diane Santos had a question. So, trans male means that I transition to male. So if you think of as like, this is English class now. So trans is the prefix, which means I'm trans, and the gender, which is male, is there. So I hate saying born as a woman because, like, again, that's the very redundant.
There's also AFAB.
Yes. So I was assigned
female.
female at birth, which is AFAB for short, because supposedly my body presented as female, so I was assigned female, and then I transitioned to look more male, and also too, Diane, you also brought up a point of surgery. As Alex mentioned, like, one, there's a lot of issues in terms of access to surgeries. There's a lot of issues in terms of hormone therapy and whatnot, and also safety. Like Tom, you mentioned, like, just surviving and like being in the closet as a trans person is like, I have to dress up as a girl because, you know, I'm going to get kicked out of my house. I'm going to get beat up. I'm going to get, you know, do this. So there is like this whole like, so if I come to like a meeting here or whatever, and I still kind of look like a girl, and it's very hard to like, no, please call me a boy, and it's because I don't have a lot of that access to just go around, get a whole new wardrobe, get a whole bunch of other new stuff. And so I think taking people not at the face value, but what they say is like the most important part of that. And so, Diane, I'm not going to tell you what surgeries that I've had. No offense. I don't know you that way. We're not sleeping with each other either. So, but that's just me. You don't have to have a surgery to be transgender. Back then, I think in the 90s when I was coming out, that's the kind of funny thing. Like, I feel like old for saying, like, in 1994, when I was a kid, it was transsexual, and it was just that. So you weren't even considered trans male or trans female. You were just a transsexual, and you were now a woman, fully. Or again, spooked. But so yeah, that's about that. So that's what from Diane. Are we comfortable going on to another question?
Yes, please.
Sure.
All right. We're having such good conversations.
Yes.
I'm really glad that thank you guys for coming on.
Could Alex pick one?
Oh, let's do that. Yeah, that'll be fun.
The youngin.
Apparently he
Maybe not
doesn't like
allowed
the
to.
questions you're picking.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So we're all gonna get.
If you want to.
So the topic is coming outs.
Can
What was
I
that?
go first?
coming
Yeah.
out.
I'm coming.
Okay.
Go.
What?
Zoe wants to go first, y'all. So.
Okay, so I actually started coming out at the age of 4. I told my mother that I did not identify as male. I thought I should have been born female, and then at that time my mother told me that I should wait until I'm older, because 4 isn't a good idea to
To make life
decide,
decisions.
yes,
Yeah.
life decisions, to decide for yourself what and who you are. But around the age of 13, I came out as bi. Then 16, 17, somewhere around there, sophomore, junior year, I met, I got into NB Agley. Went to couple of the first meetings, and I've been there ever since. And I'm one of the, as people say, OG kids, which means original. If nobody doesn't know what that is.
There was an OG before you all OG. Just so you know.
Yeah,
There was.
I saw. I saw.
There was 3 of us, okay? It still counted.
But and I met some amazing peer leaders, and I thank those peer leaders very much if they are watching and if they watch after, because they helped me a lot coming out of helping me become who I am and who I was supposed to be. And I came out as trans that year, and then I came out as gender nonconforming, non-binary, trans feminine 2-3 years ago, and that's because it's just easier for me to not be with the gender norms. I don't like the gender normativity, and basically just I want to be myself, and I don't want to be labeled to an extent. I want to have some sort of label, but doesn't everybody. And I came out as pansexual around the same time as I came out as trans, so 17.
I personally,
Sorry.
The first letter of the alphabet I came out as, came out to my mom as bi. I was still questioning. I knew at a young age that I was in the wrong body. I just didn't know quite the word for it until I was in my teens, where I was like, there's actually a community and there's a word and this is how I feel. So I came out as trans last year or 2 years ago. And that was a bit of a struggle. And then I found NB-AGLE, and I still attend NB-AGLE. And where I felt safe, and I said who I was, and that was it. And yeah.
To the end of the table. Don't all rush at once.
Well,
You go for it.
I came out in high school, but this was in the 59, 60, and we were illegal.
Yeah.
It was illegal to be gay, and you had to be very careful how many items of clothing of your identified or their identified gender was, or they could arrest you. And if you were a drag queen or a trans person and you worked at a club, then you were allowed to dress in drag because you worked. You had to have your card, though, or else they would arrest you. So it wasn't something that you did easily. I tried to avoid it because my mother was not happy. And then eventually she found out I was gay and threatened to not send me back to school. So I left, and I went to New York, and that was the beginning of my gay life in New York City. So that's how I came out.
Do you want to go?
No, you can go.
I want to hear yours first. No, I had a strange, but not bizarre, approach. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a priest. And they used to have these things called junior seminaries.
Yes.
Okay, which now you'd think they were bizarre, but this was just after the Middle Ages. And so sex was not a topic, all right, because you were supposed to end up celibate, okay? So you didn't worry about gender because it was, okay, just don't have sex. And then before that, when I was growing up, it was a non-issue. Okay, your parents never said don't be gay. It was, everybody assumes you're gonna grow up like your parents, but it wasn't you're gonna grow up like your parents. It was just assumed. So I went from where it was assumed everybody was gonna be like the rest of your family to a place where you didn't talk about sex. And then I came out of that, and then all my friends were getting married. So, of course, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to get married, but it just didn't look attractive. So it took me a while to come to the point where I accepted me, right? Because when you really look back, it all adds up. But at the time, it's not, okay? But then I was like, what? I couldn't put this together? So anyway, I came out by accident with my parents because I had written down what I would tell them when I had the courage. And my mother had this magical ability to find things without looking.
The snooping.
No, she never snooped.
No?
She, if you bought your first porn magazine and slid it under the rug where she would never look, little did you know that she was planning that day to change the rugs in the bedroom. So she would find things totally by accident. And I had written this thing out, and I was living at home at the time, and I had hid it in my drawer under my underwear, right? And my mother decided the day before that she was going to buy us all new underwear. So she comes in and she throws out all the old underwear, and what's laying on the bottom of the thing is this letter. And I had folded it in such a way without looking that the first word that you could see was the word gay.
Okay.
Right. And of course now she's my mother, she's curious, she reads. So when I came home from work that day, there's my mother and father, we need to talk to you. And so they kind of, I guess they came out to me. They told me I was gay. And my mother's thing was she kind of always knew it, it's just she was waiting for me to figure it out. But then my father went through I don't know if any of you went through this, but you know, he was of the generation, it's not his fault. You know, his sperm are manly. And so my mother was afraid that she was the one who made me gay, you know, old people. So they went to therapy, which was wonderful, to find out who it was. And they didn't know that the therapist was a lesbian. And, and they had me show up one time at a session because it took me into my 20s to accept me, and all of a sudden I expected them to accept me the minute I told them. Well, I had advantage of time, and they had to get it like that. So they went through that, so I had to go, my father had to say all the things that he was against gay, until he found out that he never asked me. He condemned me for all the things I did, and then the therapist asked, well, did he tell you he does those things? And his thing was, well, all gay people do that. And it was like, no. So they pulled back a little bit. So it ended up all happy.
That's nice.
Right? But I was kind of a late bloomer, but I wasn't ready to come out when I was outed by my mother. Your turn now.
It's really a cute fairy tale.
It is a cute little fairy tale.
I'm a fairy and I have tails.
Really lovely.
No, it really happened. It's all in my
I
diary.
know, it's great.
It's in the book.
Why are you looking at me?
It's your turn.
Your
Your turn.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah, when did you come out?
Unfortunately, I think I always knew I was gay, but I didn't come out until I was 39, like I said last year. I came from an Italian-Irish family. My father was an Irish cop, very strict, chief of police in the town that I grew up in. I was the youngest. I found out later on in life that I had my oldest brother and my oldest sister were gay and lesbian. But I found that out a little bit later, not growing up, they weren't around. I also was an educator, and in those days you had to, if you wanted to climb the educational ladder, you had to be married. So when I went off to my teaching job, I met someone, and well, here's a way out of my house, away from my domineering father. So I decided to get married. On my wedding day, my mother grabs me by the throat, pushes me into, don't do it, leave now. So, I said, well, there's a lot of money. She said, money means nothing. Get out while you can. Needless to say, we walked down the aisle. And 15 years later, we were divorced. But as an aside note, growing up at the age of 5, I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey. At the age of 5, I met my husband, who was 7. We built sandcastles on the beach for many summers. It gets even better.
And
This
mine's
is
a
so
fairy tale.
cute.
We were friends and playmates for many years. We worked together on the boardwalk. I sold French fries and ice cream, and he ran the wheel, 10 cents, 10 cents, want a pack of cigarettes. Anyway, and then, as I've often said, if he had kissed me and I didn't kiss Betty Ann, I would have come out sooner. But instead, we went our separate ways. He got married, I got married, and then, at the age of 39, I'm sitting in a bar after happy hour with a group of teachers, and this man sits down next to me and said, of course I'd had 3 sheets, about 10 martinis, and he said to me, are you Tom Sheehan? And I said, who the fuck are you? And he said, I'm Marvin Shell. We grew up together. and we have not been apart since.
That is the most
That's almost
precious.
like beaches.
And we're going to be together 32 years this April.
This needs to be like a romance novel.
It's a fairy tale.
Yes.
And we were married here in Massachusetts
Oh.
7 years ago. So, anyway,
So it's getting close to the top of the hour. And there's one pressing question. I know that we wanted to I loaded way more questions than possible just in case anyone was like, no. But there's one pressing question that has always torn through the community here and there. How do you feel about the word queer? So I would like to open that up because Tracy did mention that we were going to definitely talk about that, so I did want to talk about that. And so I think we can close off the program with the most heated discussion of them all.
You want to start?
Oh, well, in the days, in the 50s and 60s, I can't speak before then, I'm sure it was that, but the word queer just put you in a category of negativity. Mm-hmm. So it just put everybody that anybody thought was in any way different queer. And, so if you identified gay, then, so it's not a word that we liked. Mm-hmm. I didn't like. I can only speak for me, and I still don't like it. I also don't like lesbian either, because you were a leslie. It was always the Lizzie Borden nonsense, even then.
Yeah.
And so that's why gay just seemed to fit us all at the time. So that's my feeling about it.
And like on that, it was the word you heard when you were being beat up or ostracized. Mm-hmm. And like I had students, and I would tell them to don't use it with older people, mm-hmm. because they're not going to like it. But again, with the word queer, I just want to say this: we need the one word instead of the alphabet that's ever growing.
Yeah.
Because you forget letters and people can. And I thought for a while that when the young people started using the word queer, it wasn't what the old people would like, but they finally found that one word that would mean everybody, mm-hmm. and then they stuck it into the alphabet, and all it did was it became another letter, mm-hmm. which I kind of didn't like. Yeah. But if the young people want to call themselves queer, I got no problem with that. Mm-hmm. But just be aware that when you're with older people and you say that, they're not going to like it, but they're not going to come at you. Right. But just understand if they do, it's because they were beaten by it.
Now, do either of you actually personally identify as queer, or?
No.
I do. For me, so I'm history. I'm a history major. I like history a lot. And we were briefly discussing that, the reason queer became a synonymous with being gay or whatnot was because it was a slightly coded language, because back in the very, very old days, and I'm speaking way beyond the people here represented at the table.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, unless someone's a time traveler, I don't think anyone.
I won't tell.
You had to speak in code in a very different language, and queer was kind of kind of slightly coded language, because not odd, but again, what you were saying, Joe, that everyone assumed you'd be like your parents, and so to have the slightly different, it was just that's queer. And I think it was innocent enough, and then it did become very maligned, and I recognize that. I mean, so since doing this show, full disclosure, I did get ice chucked at me, and I was called I didn't like being called queer that moment, but I still identify as queer, and mostly because in a way I don't want them to kind of have that power over me, and that I'd rather call myself it and feel happy with it, and not in self-deprecating humor, but in that kind of way, you can't really call me that because I like it, so.
Because I can call myself that.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you. I don't find the word queer to be horrible. I find the word fag to be, that's the word that sets me off. I'm just delighted that young folks have taken ownership of the word queer.
Yeah.
Made it ours. So you can't hurt me by using that word anymore. You can hurt the hell by calling me a faggot, because I hate that word. But queer, it's...
That was the other word that was used in
What,
the-
faggot?
Yeah, they called me a queer. So I don't
I
know
like when they called you a queer faggot.
Yeah, I think you a queer
What
faggot.
the-
It's like double, like so you're,
Double
you're
whammy.
gay squared.
Yeah.
So like you're so gay, you're extra gay.
Yeah.
A real
That's
friend
possible.
of Dorothy.
Yeah.
Gay to the third power. I mean,
That's what we need. We need, instead of just letters, we need to someone with math knowledge knows this. But what, an exponent? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, an exponent. We need an exponent now added to the soup mix there. That would be the ultimate level. That should be on the gay agenda. There is one.
so thank you, young folks, for accepting and taking ownership of queer. Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments from you guys? Like, do you have anything to add to it? Or?
I personally don't have really anything against or for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know like the history with it being used to be hated against, and nowadays it's like I'm queer and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm kind of in between. I don't really have a specific opinion about it.
Or just like no comment.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think it's, in a way, an empowering word for some people. Well, young people, because people don't really like the word. But and I also know a few people, because I've traveled everywhere. I've gone to Providence. I've gone to Boston, Western Mass. I've met a ton of people, and I know a couple of people that identify as queer, and they are powerful people. So
I want to thank you guys all again for coming here. Thank you for the Bedford Guide for hosting us. And the only way we can have continue these kind of really great conversations and these kind of really great meetings, because I'm really happy to have met all of you tonight, is with your support. If you can contact Leo at newbedfordguide.com, that'd be great. We have different ad levels. Talk to him about it, and that way you can help support us and also support the South Coast LGBTQ network, because a bit of the proceeds will also go to them as well. And any closing thoughts, you guys? Anything like that?
I think this is amazing.
this was an amazing opportunity, and I think the South Coast LGBTQ network, New Bedford Guide, and also the seniors for sitting here with us.
Thank you, Junior.
Well, I think we each have a lot to learn from each other. I mean, you guys have a lot to teach me that I don't know, because you're in a whole different generation and you have a whole different experience, and anything that I could teach you, I'm happy to pass on. So I think it's really good, and I hope we can do it more.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to recommend, read history.
Yes.
Don't take it off the internet, so to speak, or watch that horrible movie, Stonewall. But read the books, because there's a whole rich history that people aren't really aware of. And if you want to destroy people, you take away their history and tell them what it was. So we have a rich history.
And just talking, that's one way to learn history. And what I like doing is oral histories, talking and engaging with because. So one thing I can stress upon straight people is that we're the one family that doesn't have the opportunity to learn from parents, because as kids we're assuming that we're going to learn from our parents, and that kind of model of what relationships are like or how to be is from your parents. And many of us don't get that opportunity. We are often either kicked out, or we know that we're not like our parents because we're not straight, or we're not cisgender, and cisgender means that you are not transgender, so it's the opposite.
You conform with you were born as.
Yes. And so we don't have that opportunity, and so where can we get that? Who are our parents and our chosen family? And talking with parents and grandparents and great grandparents is one way we can learn our history, and we should have more opportunity like that. And I want to also quickly shout out is it LGBTQ supper? Is that what?
LGBTQ.
Yeah, the senior supper. It's the fourth Wednesday of every month, but not this month. It's going to be starting in February.
In Fairhaven.
In Fairhaven. Yeah, the Fairhaven Council on Aging, correct. Oh, and next week's show is going to be about, thank you. Next week's show is going to be about choosing to be a parent. Maybe we'll have Tom again. I mean, if that's, you have 3 kids.
Adopted at birth.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. We're going to have people who are chosen to be parents. And then, do we already have the lineup for the next week's show? I think might be also straight parents of LGBTQ youth, if I remember correctly. But don't hold me to that. Exactly.
It is.
It is. Okay, thank you. I got confirmation from
Just that voice
the
again.
from the Wizard of Oz behind the screen. So again, thank you so much. It was great talking with you guys. Also, and Sylvia, just want to let you know, shoot us a message on like the Facebook chat or whatever, and about that little conversation of maybe having that person on potentially. All right, thank you.